Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. Right before this video, I did part one of an interview with Tom Burlinson and the ride of his life in The Man from Snowy River. So it's a long interview, it's almost 20 minutes. So I'm breaking it up into 3 parts. And this is part 2. So if you hadn't seen part 1, you might want to. And this is a few seconds, maybe half a minute leading up the very first 30 seconds probably of where I left off on part 1. So it's Tom Burlinson, and he's talking about the orchestra, where y'all know what I mean, but that's where we're picking up. So let's get in view and right into the video.
What's the experience like watching the film with this full orchestra behind it?
Oh, it's fabulous. It's very grand. What Bruce wrote, the beautiful lyrical Jessica's theme is one part of it, but the main theme of The Man from Snowy River, and of course all of the stuff that accompanies Jim's ride, is very grand. So we've got the French horns and the full orchestra going during, and the amazing thing is that they've come up with a new way of presenting the movie. So here we are. We see it on the big screen in its full glory, and originally shot on Panavision, and they've managed to take the music off the track but leave the dialogue and the sound effects. So and the music is played live by the symphony orchestra in sync with the movie as we watch it. So it's quite an experience, and I sort of forgot that the music was being played live, and then something will happen and it draws you back into, oh, this is happening right now in the immediate moment.
What do you and Sigrid do as part of the presentation?
Well, we've been asked to just kick things off, really, Ian, and to share some of our memories of the making of the film. We do talk about the audition scene, my screen test, because Sigrid was cast before anyone was cast, any other actor was cast. So she read opposite all of the young actors who were screen testing for the part of Jim. So we talk about that. We talk about coming to terms with the horse riding, as far as I'm concerned. We talk about Kirk, of course, working with Kirk Douglas and Jack Thompson, Lorraine Bailey, the other co-stars. It was extraordinary for an Australian film to be #1 box office. To me, the most successful movie ever released in Australia. This was before Crocodile Dundee, of course, but it did better business than Star Wars and Superman and Jaws on the domestic market. That was unheard of at the time, and I think it made people feel very patriotic, and particularly when Bruce brings in Waltzing Matilda, the strains of Waltzing Matilda at the very end of the movie, when the man returns home and spins his horse around and then rides down to the homestead.
Horse riding is one of the selling points of the film. It's extraordinary, those sequences. And I remember when I was at high school, my best mate, Mark Bullen, his dad owned the circus. And I'd spend weekends at their place. They had a big ranch sort of property. And I used to try to ride. And we'd do things like rounding up the bison. And I can remember, I think it was Cleo, that was Mark's mum, shouting at me and saying, "Get away from those rabbit holes," because a horse going over a rabbit hole can get their hoof caught and down you go. It was just an amazing time, and I didn't become a great rider, but I just loved the energy of it. Now, when you were riding down that mountain, that was you, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, look,
I was scared.
At my audition, Ian, I told George Miller that when it became clear what the character was, I said, and unlike probably most actors in an audition situation, I said, look, I've sat on a horse maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. And he said, don't worry about that. Anyway, did a screen test, got on, made good contact with Sigrid. A month later, they offered me the role, and I was sent the full script. And I read, and then Jim rides down the mountain, right? And I thought back to what George just said, don't worry about that. Well, the producers had in mind that they would double the role of Jim, much more than eventuated, because I realized I'd been given a great opportunity, of course, and I was a city boy born and bred, and I had to, if I was going to play the character convincingly, I had to come to terms with the horse riding. I had to look like I'd been on and around horses all my life. Anyway, during that preparation period, I met the man who became Master of Horse on the film, Charlie Lovick, and he owned the buckskin who was cast as the man's horse even before Sigrid was cast in the movie. Denny, Charlie's buckskin, was the first being that was cast in the movie. He was going to be the man's horse. And I had to get my skills up to be able to manage him. So I started on quieter horses. And as it turned out, which no one knew when they cast me, I had somewhat of a natural ability and an affinity with horses that developed during that preparation time, and it enabled me eventually to be able to manage Denny and then do much more of the riding than was ever originally imagined. I didn't do all the riding. I was doubled in certain stunts, and there are quite a few shots in the movie that that the role of Jim is being doubled. But I was able to talk the director and producers into letting me have a go at the terrible descent. So all of those profile shots of the terrible descent are actually me on the star horse Denny. It enabled George Miller to get the camera in closer, and you can actually see that it is me. If people don't believe it because it looks horrible. I mean, it just looks impossible, and it had to look impossible. Otherwise, why does Clancy and all the other crack riders, why do they pull up? It had to look impossible. It's not as dangerous as it looks, but it is a magical cinematic moment in Australian film history.
I'll take your word for that it's not as dangerous as it looks.
No.
One thing I noticed is that the trees are straight, so they didn't use the trick of putting the camera on an angle. The trees are straight.
Exactly. Trees are vertical in the frame, so if they tilted the camera, they would have had to uproot all the trees and turn them on an angle too. So, of course, the footing was fixed up for the horse. It wasn't. He sent the Flintstones flying, so it wasn't quite like that. I'd go to the premieres around the country, and people collectively would lean back in their seats watching that scene, riding with Jim as he went down the hill.
The most abiding memory I have of horse riding is bruises and a sore bum.
Yes. Well, yes, I had plenty of that, and I also, I not only had to learn how to ride a horse, but I also had to learn how to crack a stock whip. Charlie Lovick taught me how to crack a stock whip. He was a fourth-generation mountain cattleman, so he was the perfect teacher for me, and we got on very well. We became lifelong friends, actually, Ian, and, I couldn't have done what I did on the Man from Snowy River without Charlie's help. And, and I caught myself and the poor old horse quite a few times with the stock whip as I was learning, and sore legs and sore bum, that was all part of it too.
I was at Kirk Douglas's press conference when he came out to shoot the film.
Were you?
There was a lot of antagonism about a yank in the role.
Yes.
He was asked about that. He stood up, he took a step back, and he said, "Who can recite The Man from Snowy River?" And, of course, we all looked at each other and thought, well, we know the first lines. And so he launched into a recitation of the poem, and it was magnificent, and he shut everybody up.
Yes, it was Kirk's way of taking on that antagonism. And, of course, he did. He did it with great energy, and look, he was a clever man, and I think he won over the room that day.
Is there a section of Patterson's poem that you particularly like?
All right, man. So this is a part 2, and I want to stop it before we get into. I think the question was: is there a section of the movie or Patterson's poem that you particularly liked? And before he answers it, I want to stop it right there. We still got about 6 minutes left to finish this interview out, and I could have probably done it. Well, I don't know, man. It's just hard to say. This is how I choose to do it, and good or bad, I guess. So let's go ahead and let's get this one done. I'll get it. In fact, let's go here, and I'll back this up just a little bit, and then we'll finish it out in part 3. Like I said, all these will be put out on the same day, and that way y'all don't have to work. Unless it gets blocked, y'all. It'd be my luck that part 1 made it, part 2 got blocked, and part 3 made it, or something. But I'll make sure in the description that you'll know that it's part 1, 2, and 3. But anyway, that's going to do it for me for this one. Stay tuned for part 3. Till I see y'all again, I'll catch you down the road. Bye, y'all.